he stammered. Again the lifted lantern light flashed disconcertingly across his face and shoulders. "Why, don't you remember anything?" drawled little Eve Edgarton. "Not anything at all? Why, I must have worked over you 2 hours! Artificial respiration, you know, and all that sort of thing, before I even got you up here. My, but you're heavy!" She reproached him frowningly. "Men ought to stay just as light as they possibly can, so when they get into trouble and things it would be easier for women to help them. Why, last year in the China Sea, with Father and 5 of his friends—" A trifle shiveringly she shrugged her shoulders. "Oh, well, never mind about Father and the China Sea," she retracted soberly. "It's only that I'm so small, you see, and so flexible I can crawl around most anywhere through portholes and things, even if they're capsized. So we only lost one of them. One of Father's friends, I mean, and I never would have lost him if he hadn't been so heavy." "Ours?" gasped Barton irrelevantly. With a wry twist of his neck he peered out through the darkness to where the freshening air, the steady monotonous slosh, slosh, slosh of rain, the pale intermittent flare of stale lightning proclaimed the opening of the cave. "For heaven's sake, what time is it?" he faltered. "Why, I'm sure I don't know," said little Eve Edgarton, "but I should guess it might be about 8 or 9 o'clock. Are you hungry?" With infinite agility she scrambled to her knees and went darting off on all fours like a squirrel into some mysterious, clattery corner of the darkness, from which she emerged at last with one little gray flannel arm crooked inclusively around a whole elbowful of treasure. "There," she drawled. "There, there, there." Only the soft earthy thud that accompanied each "there" pointed the slightest significance to the word. The first thud was a slim, queer stone flagon of vodka. Wanly, like some far pinnacle on some far Russian fortress, its grim shape loomed in the sallow lantern light. The second thud was a dust-colored basket of dates from some green-spotted Arabian desert. Vaguely its soft curving outline merged into shadow and turf. The third thud was a battered old drinking cup, dully silver, mysteriously Chinese. The fourth thud was a big glass jar of frankly American beef. Familiarly, reassuringly, its sleek sides glinted in the flickering flame. "Supper!" announced little Eve Edgarton. As tomboyishly as a miniature brigand she crawled forward again into the meager square of lantern-tinted earth, and, yanking a revolver out of one boot leg and a pair of scissors from the other, settled herself with unassailable girlishness to jab the delicate scissor points into the stubborn tin top of the meat jar. As though the tin had been his own flesh, the act goaded Barton half upright into the light, a brightly naked young Viking to the waist, a vaguely shadowed equestrian fashion plate to the feet. "Well, I certainly never saw anybody like you before," he glowered at her. With equal gravity, but infinitely more deliberation, little Eve Edgarton returned the stare. "I never saw anybody like you before either," she said enigmatically. Barton winced back into the darkness. "Oh, I say," he stammered, "I wish I had a coat. I feel like a—" "Why? Why?" droned little Eve Edgarton perplexedly. Out from the yellow heart of the pansy blackness her small, grave, gnomish face peered after him with pristine frankness. "Why? Why, I think you look nice," said little Eve Edgarton. With a really desperate effort Barton tried to clothe himself in facetiousness, if in nothing else. "Oh, very well," he grinned feebly. "If you don't mind, there's no special reason, I suppose, why I should." Vaguely, blurrishly, like a figure on the wrong side of a stained glass window, he began to loom up again into the lantern light. There was no embarrassment, certainly, about his hunger, nor any affectation at all connected with his thirst. Chokingly from the battered silver cup he gulped down the scorching vodka. Ravenously he attacked the salty meat, the sweet, cloying dates. Watching him solemn-eyed from her own intermittent nibbles, the girl spoke out quite simply the thought that was uppermost in her mind. "This supper'll come in mighty handy, won't it, if we have to be out here all night, Mr. Barton?" "If we have to be out here all night?" faltered Barton. Oh, ye gods! If just their afternoon ride together had been hotel talk, as of course it was within 5 minutes after their departure, what would their midnight return be? Or rather, their non-return? Already through his addled brain he heard the monotonous creak creak of rocking chair gossip, the sly jests of the smoking room, the whispered excitement of the kitchen, all the sophisticated old worldlings hoping indifferently for the best, all the unsophisticated old prudes yearning ecstatically for the worst. "If we have to stay out here all night?" he repeated wildly. Oh, what will your father say, Miss Edgarton?" "What will father say?" drawled little Eve Edgarton. Thuddingly she set down the empty beef jar. "Oh, father'll say, 'What in creation is Eve out trying to save tonight? A dog? A cat? A three-legged deer?'" "Well, what do you expect to save?" quizzed Barton a bit tartly. "Just you," acknowledged little Eve Edgarton without enthusiasm. "And isn't it funny," she confided placidly, "that I've never yet succeeded in saving anything that I could take home with me and keep? That's the trouble with boarding." In a vague, gold-colored flicker of appeal her lifted face flared out again into Barton's darkness. Too fugitive to be called a smile, a tremor of reminiscence went scudding across her mouth before the brooding shadow of her old slouch hat blotted out her features again. "In India once," persisted the dreary little voice, "in India once, when father and I were going into the mountains for the summer, there was a sort of faker at one of the railway stations doing tricks with a crippled tiger cub. A tiger cub with a shot off paw. And when father wasn't looking, I got off the train and went back, and I followed that faker 2 days till he just naturally had to sell me the tiger cub. He couldn't exactly have an Englishwoman following him indefinitely into indistinctness. But the people at the hotel were indifferent to him," she rallied whisperingly, "and I had to let him go." "You got off a train? In India? Alone?" snapped Barton. "And went following a dirty, sneaking faker for 2 days? Well, of all the crazy, indiscreet—" "Indiscreet?" mused little Eve Edgarton. Again, out of the murky blackness, her tilted chin caught up the flare of yellow lantern light. "Indiscreet?" she repeated monotonously. "Who? I?" "Yes, you," grunted Barton. "Traipsing around all alone after—" "But I never am alone, Mr. Barton," protested the mild little voice. "You see, I always have the extra saddle, the extra railway ticket, the extra whatever it is. And caressingly a little gold-tipped hand reached out through the shadows and patted something indistinctly metallic. "My mother's memory? My father's revolver?" she drawled. "Why, what better company could any girl have? Indiscreet?" Slowly the tip of her little nose tilted up into the light. "Why, down in the Transvaal 2 years ago," she explained painstakingly. "Why, down in the Transvaal 2 years ago they called me the best chaperoned girl in Africa. Indiscreet? Why, Mr. Barton, I never even saw an indiscreet woman in all my life. Men, of course, are indiscreet sometimes," she conceded conscientiously. "Down in the Transvaal 2 years ago I had to shoot up a couple of men for being a little bit indiscreet, but—" In one jerk Barton raised himself to a sitting posture. "You shot up a couple of men?" he demanded peremptorily.